I'm Martin Tyler, and you're listening to Harry Symeou.
Hey everybody, how's it going? Welcome back to another live edition of the Chronicles of a Gooner, the Arsenal podcast, part of the 90 Min football family. It's cold here. It's freezing. I've just spent the last 10 minutes trying to reverse my car onto the driveway without smashing into the garden wall because the ice has got me slipping all over the place. Mind you, it took me half an hour to clean the snow off the front of it earlier on, and then 15 or so minutes to clear the snow from in front of my drive to get it off. It is chaos here in London. It is a nightmare. I hate the bloody snow. I've got no idea why people like it, enjoy it, post pictures on Facebook about how beautiful it is. It is horrendous. It's the biggest pain. But you know what makes me feel better? The fact that Arsenal are Dubai Super Cup winners. Dubai Super Cup winners, that prestigious trophy that Arsenal have been vying to get their hands on over the last couple of days, has led to the Gunners, of course, giving us a bit of happiness with a trophy. Still more trophies than Spurs have won in recent times. No, I'm just kidding. Look, it's not a serious trophy, but yeah, the Dubai Super Cup, Arsenal have won it, having beaten both Olympique Lyonnais, not just in 90 minutes, but also on a penalty shootout, and then doing the same today against AC Milan of Italy, the Serie A champions, beaten by the Gunners and then beaten in a penalty shootout as well. As Temi says in the chat, champions of Dubai, you'll never sing that. Exactly. That's the new song for sure. Harvey says it's like the Audi Cup. Yeah, but this is the Dubai Super Cup. It's probably a little bit better, probably a bit more expensive, maybe. Big hello to Amira, who joins us, to Nav, to Ray, to Angry Gooner, to Abdi, who says, Harry, what a rant. Yeah, do you know what? I'll tell you why I'm ranting this time around. Like, listen, my kids love the snow. They go out, they play in it, they have fun, great, happy days. They built a snowman yesterday. They really enjoyed themselves. Okay, it's okay for a bit. But then when it disrupts your travel, it disrupts your work. You know, just now, as I said, the reason I'm a couple of minutes late jumping on this stream is because I went to drop a relative home. And when I came back and I tried to reverse my car back onto the drive, I couldn't, because the wheels were spinning and the car was going nowhere. The ice was taking me left and right. And I was worried that if I went too hard, I was going to end up backing into the wall on either side and causing myself all sorts of damage. So yeah, just a nightmare, And as James says, don't you guys in England have salt that melts the ice on your driveway and roads? I didn't know that it was going to snow, so I didn't buy anything like that. I probably should have looked at the weather forecast. But also, the roads have not been gritted here. It's really weird. Like, normally they do it, and I don't know why they haven't done it this time. I've certainly not seen it being done, not in my area anyway. But look, anyway, we've been chatting for 3 minutes about snow and moaning about it and complaining about it. I know that's not what you're here for. You're here to listen to a review of the game between Arsenal and Milan. Arsenal winning 2-1 in the end in normal time, as I say, and then winning the penalty shootout by 4-3. Mikel Arteta named a pretty strong side today, actually. I was surprised to see that both Thomas Partey and Ben White, who obviously both returned and are both with the team again, start the game. I was talking to a friend of mine who was covering the game from a Milan perspective, and he asked me sort of my thoughts, on the team going into it. And I looked at the squad that was put together for the Audi Cup, and I said, yeah, some of the players are coming back from the World Cup now. Gradually, they're sort of being drip fed in to the group and into the picture, but I don't expect any of them to start the game today. I thought it had come around too soon. But Mikel Arteta, I think, made a real statement of intent by starting both Ben White and Thomas Partey. It was a statement that says, we need you all back and we need you all ready for when the Premier League returns. And we don't really have time to give you extended breaks. We don't really have time to allow you to go and switch off for any long period of time. Now, Ben White's situation is a little bit different. Obviously, we know that for personal reasons, he left the England camp somewhat prematurely. We know, or we think, according to some reports, it was never confirmed, but we think that he'd gone off to the Maldives as well after that with his partner, to kind of help deal with whatever the situation was, which is absolutely fine and fair. He's well within his rights to do that. And then he obviously returns. He didn't play he didn't play a single minute at the World Cup. So you can't really say that he was burnt out and needed that extended break. But obviously he'd have been training when at the start of the World Cup break, some of the players who obviously weren't involved were given a bit of a breather and a bit of time away. So it's only fair that those players get that time. But unfortunately, when you look at the way things have worked out, when you look at the way the season has panned out, when you look at the way that we've got this World Cup slap bang in the middle of the campaign, there isn't really any time to give people extended breaks if you want to hit the ground running when we return. And I think Mikel Arteta will be hoping that, with the exception of Gabby Jesus, who we all know is going to be out for a period of time now, he'll have a full strength side, maybe with the exception of William Saliba for the game on Boxing Day against West Ham United, because of course Saliba's involvement in the tournament continues. Again, though, one that hasn't played, so not one, in my opinion, that really needs an extended break once his team's involvement in the World Cup comes to an end, whether that be tomorrow or whether that be after the weekend, if France go on to make the final. So, yeah, it's a really difficult situation to manage. But I think, as I say, the fact that both Partey and Ben White, who have only just returned to training with the team, were included from the outset, I think it was a real statement, not a statement that says, I care about the Dubai Super Cup like Harry Symeou does, and I'm going to be singing about it for the next week, but a statement that says that I expect people, as soon as they're ready, to come back in and to help the team. I expect people to get straight back on board, and I expect people to be able to switch their focus from the World Cup tournament back to club football, because Arsenal have got something to challenge for. Arsenal have got something to push for. Arsenal are in a really great, strong position, moving forward. And Mikel Arteta will be hoping that the club can do their bit and bring in reinforcements and support him and Edu in their quest for success. But also, he'll want to see from his players that level of commitment. It's one of those things, right, where, I've worked with a lot of people over the years that I always felt would do what was required of them, would work the hours that were asked of them, but would never, ever go that extra mile, that little bit further. And I think that's fine. People are well within their rights to do that and be like that. But I think if you really want to succeed at something, and you really want to be the best at something, and you really want to challenge and push yourselves, sometimes you do have to push those limits. Sometimes you do have to go a little bit beyond what is asked of you, to almost demonstrate that level of commitment, but also get better and push forward. And I want to see some of those players kind of go, yeah, you know what, I could go off and have 3 or 4 days in the sun and relax and recharge and refresh. But if I didn't really play, in the case of Ben White, who didn't play at all, William Saliba's hardly played, I'd want those players. I'd sort of quietly, as a manager, be expecting those players to sort of almost not forfeit their break, because you can't put a gun to someone's head and say, forfeit your break, forfeit your holiday. I wouldn't like that if somebody did it to me. But there's a part of me that wants to see those players show that extra level of commitment and push, and move forward. So, yeah, let's see what happens there. But as I say, the team pretty strong. Karl Hein continued in goal. Obviously, had a decent game against Lyon. Came up as a bit of a hero in the penalty shootout, although it was the worst penalty shootout I've probably ever seen. But yeah, anyway, let's talk about the team then. So Hein in goal. The right back was Ben White, obviously coming back into the side. The centre backs were Holding and Gabriel, and Kieran Tierney played at left back. In midfield, as mentioned, Thomas Partey sat at the base of it with Lokonga and Odegaard either side. Fabio Vieira once again playing from the right, Reece Nelson from the left, and Eddie Nketiah through the middle. So Arsenal took the lead through Martin Odegaard. It was a superb free kick from the Norwegian. It really, really was, because I remember sort of thinking about when Arsenal won the free kick. Obviously, it was he and Fabio Vieira standing over the ball. And I thought to myself, that is the exact position from which Fabio Vieira scored against Lyon. It's the exact position that Fabio Vieira seems to come alive in, just that half space in off the right-hand side on your left foot. But Martin Odegaard, obviously, as the captain, pulled rank, stepped up, and produced a wonderful free kick. It really, really was wonderful. If you haven't seen it yet, I'm sure you can find it somewhere. Google it, check it out, because what he does is he lifts the ball beautifully over the wall, and then it's got so much dip on it once it reaches the other side of the wall that it almost ends up in the bottom corner. Like, it's beautifully executed. Check it out. You'll really, really enjoy it. And as is pointed out in the comments, the goalkeeper, Tatarusanu of Milan, did not move. He did not move. He was beaten all ends up. And then Arsenal go and find a second goal through Reece Nelson. It was a shot from Reece Nelson after some really wonderful play. Fabio Vieira heavily involved, probably could have shot himself, decided to roll it square to Nelson, took a touch, struck towards goal. And as Odegaard tries to jump over it, I think it clips off the bottom of his stud, off the bottom of his boot maybe, and that just adds a little bit more trajectory to the effort. And that means that Tatarusanu, who, had sort of gone down as a goalkeeper, couldn't then get himself back up. Unbelievable move and unbelievable bit of build-up after Arsenal win the ball high up the pitch, but a little bit of a fortune in that it took a deflection on its way through, and that really did obviously benefit the striker. It looks as though the goal's been given to Reece Nelson at the time of recording, which is great, because I think he could do with the confidence, and I think he could do with, keeping himself relevant, given that he's fighting for a place and trying to establish himself in this Arsenal team. Really, really good stuff. Up until that point, I didn't think Arsenal were all that good today. Let me rephrase that. Maybe it wasn't that Arsenal were below par. Maybe it was because I'd watched the game against Lyon at the back end of last week, and I saw a really poor Lyon side basically dominated and controlled by an Arsenal side that was made up of some young players and some players that were on the fringes and not necessarily anything close to Arsenal's first team, essentially. Whereas this time, Milan, I thought, started the game much, much better than Lyon did. I thought they imposed themselves quite well. I thought that they kept the ball quite well. I thought that they had a couple of moments. The standout moment in the first half would have been the moment where Divock Origi picked it up on the edge of our box, sort of spun away from Rob Holding, I think it was, and then struck the angle between the crossbar and post. So I remember, sort of, as I was watching the game and as the game was unfolding in front of me, thinking to myself, I'm struggling here to work out whether Arsenal have been worse than they were against Lyon, or poorer than they were against Lyon, or if I'm just watching Arsenal play a better side who are much more capable of causing us problems. And I think it was probably the latter. I think Arsenal were, of a similar level to the level that they showed against Lyon. They were ruthless when they got into the penalty area, the Gunners, and that's always good to see, especially without Gabby Jesus, especially when one of the things we've bemoaned about this team over the last couple of years is that we didn't always get what we deserved from our performances. And sometimes we play wonderful football, with slice teams open, but we never could always find that finishing touch. And I think now, there seems to be a bit more of a ruthlessness. Reece Nelson has added goals in the Premier League. He's added goals when he's been involved in different competitions as well. He's doing it even in friendlies. It's not about the value of a goal in a friendly. It's about the habit, the successful mindset, the ruthlessness that you need to show in front of goal. And I always say this, right? As somebody who played as a striker, my theory on being a striker is very simple. It's about habit. Scoring goals should be a habit for you. You should go out onto a football pitch expecting to score a goal. You should know where you need to be. You should make the right movements. You should know when you get in certain positions, which part of the goal to aim for. You should know, what your intention is before the ball comes to you. You should essentially have it built in your mind. It should be a mindset. It should be a habit. It should be a routine. And I think that's so, so important. And I think when you're a young player finding your way, when you're a young player, maybe in Reece Nelson's case, who thought he was on a really high trajectory, was moving forward through his career, people thought he was going to explode at Arsenal, and then it didn't really happen, and he had to go out on loan a couple of times, and then he's had injuries to contend with as well. I think for someone like Reece Nelson, it's about resetting. And he's talked before, hasn't he, about how maybe he wasn't as professional as he could have been in the early stages of his career. But I tell you what, he looks incredibly professional now. It feels like the penny's dropped with Reece Nelson. It feels as though he now realizes what it requires. It feels as though he's desperate to prove a point to Mikel Arteta. It feels as though Mikel Arteta's done some great work with him and has got him to a much higher level overall. He was impressive at times with Feyenoord last season. People constantly were telling me about how pleasantly surprised they've been by his performances. But I think now you see a much more mature Reece Nelson and one that seems to produce a lot more end product. Okay, it's the Dubai Super Cup. It's a friendly at the end of the day. And ultimately, you need to be able to translate that into the Premier League and into the Europa League and the Carabao Cup and the FA Cup, whatever. But for me, to see him sort of being a far more effective player than he's probably ever been is obviously very nice, because he's always had a trick. He's always had a flick. He's always been able to beat a man. He's always been able to get into dangerous positions. Has he always made the right decisions? Has he always produced the final pass or the final shot, whatever it may be? I don't think he has. So to see him looking so much more rounded as a player is obviously a credit to Mikel Arteta, but also to him more than anybody else for the hard work that he's put in and the fact that he is obviously improving week on week by the looks of it. As for Thomas Partey and Ben White, as we're going to run through sort of parts of the team, what was their performances like? Listen, I said this in the live watch along that we did earlier on, and a big thank you, by the way, to everybody that joined us for that. It was amazing to see so many people with us live. But one of the things I said when someone asked me the question in the chat, what was Ben White's performance like, was this. Actually, am I really looking for performance from Ben White and Thomas Partey? I'd like to see it, but it's not my priority right now. And that might sound weird. Like, you might be thinking, where's he coming from on this? Where is he going with this? For me, I know exactly what Ben White is all about. I know exactly what Thomas Partey is all about. I know exactly what they bring to this team and what they bring to the table. So I'm not looking to be surprised by their performance. I'm not looking to say, oh, do you know what? Actually, he's quite a good passer of the ball. Or, oh, look at that fantastic piece of defending. I'm looking to see players getting back into routine. I'm looking to see players fine-tuning themselves once again ahead of the Premier League restart. And particularly in the case of those two who have just played their first matches back, I want to see them come through it unscathed. That's equally as important for me. And so, both of them did that. None of them were outstanding, but it was a game in which you could see, I think they were coming back into it. There were flashes of really good stuff from both of them. But I think, the focus is that you need to build these guys up between now and Boxing Day. And sometimes that process, it takes a few days. It takes a couple of weeks, and hopefully having them back so early means we've got the time to work on that. I mentioned Odegaard's goal. I mentioned, obviously, Nelson's goal. Let's talk Martin Odegaard, because, again, superb, sensational, dictated play, immaculate touch, unbelievably good at breaking lines with his passing. And do you know what really has kind of made me smile throughout this World Cup, by the way, is that I always talk about line breaking. I talk about the need for line breaking, the importance of line breaking, and how there are players that have really high pass success rates but never break lines. And that's because they're playing it safe. And so that statistic is often something that can be quite misleading. Martin Odegaard breaks lines. And I don't think there are many players in the league that do it better than Martin Odegaard. Thomas Partey is very good at it as well, but from a deeper position. But the way Martin Odegaard just drops off and pops up into pockets and then line breaks with little flicks around the corner and things like that, it's a joy to watch. And we saw it again today. It was on display again. Obviously, he was full of confidence after that free kick as well, as you'd expect. Stunning goal. It gets you in the mood, doesn't it? But the other thing I really liked about Martin Odegaard today was his competitive nature was on show, and also his embracing of the captaincy. And you might wonder what I mean here, but sort of watching the game, there was a moment in the first half when he was involved, sort of telling a Milan player to kind of ease off a little bit. There was a challenge that went in. I think it was from Sandro Tonali on an Arsenal player, and Martin Odegaard, I think it was on Fabio Vieira. I think it was that one where his arm went across the face of Fabio Vieira as he tried to win the ball back. Arsenal didn't even get a free kick for it, but Martin Odegaard, he was on that side of the pitch. He sort of leans over to Stefano Pioli, the Milan manager, and he says, "It's just an effing friendly." That's twice now. And you're going to get these moments in football matches, right? You're going to get moments of conflict. You're going to get moments where someone's upset with something that they've seen and reacts, and you expect both sides to fight their player's corner. Absolutely. But I really like that Martin Odegaard, who comes across as this really well-spoken, quiet, polite lad, has that in him. And obviously, as coaches and as staff around the club and within the club, Arsenal would have seen that. They'd have looked at him and gone, yeah, this guy does have leadership qualities. He is captain material based on his ability, based on his availability, based on the fact that he is the first name pretty much on the team sheet or one of. But also they know what he is like behind the scenes. And I think as fans, sometimes when we're a little bit detached, we don't always get to see that. We don't always get to see that side of Martin Odegaard. And to see it today actually was quite nice. Just that leadership, backing up his players. He also ran over later on in the game when I think it was Fikayo Tomori put Marquinhos down on the ground after he had fouled a Milan player. But again, Martin Odegaard was one of the first people on the scene to kind of like question what was the need for that. Gabriel there too as well. You know that Granit Xhaka would be in the thick of it as well had he been with the team too. So we're seeing that togetherness, we're seeing that leadership, and even in friendlies, you want to see that competitive edge, and Arsenal had that today. I want to talk a little bit about Sambi Lokonga because again, this is a player that I think divides a lot of Arsenal fans at the moment. How good is he? Is he good enough? Is he someone that we should be pursuing or persisting with, I beg your pardon, in the long term? And I'm still on the fence with Lokonga. I like him. I like flashes of what I see. I liked him before we signed him. I like that he was really comfortable on the ball. I like that he was brilliant at sort of bringing the ball out from deep positions and then pinging balls left and right and starting moves and breaking lines in the way that Partey can and that Odegaard can. He's come in with a lot of expectation. He's come in and played more than I think Arsenal would have planned for when they brought him in. I think that they were looking at his development over the course of 2-3 seasons as opposed to wanting to throw him in straight away. But then I look at Sambi Lokonga's age and I start to struggle because for me, if we're talking about a player that is developing, we're talking about someone that is 19, 20 years old. I think there's a point now, or I think certainly in modern football, we do get the odd late bloomer. We do get players that, really come to life later on in their careers. And, Olivier Giroud is a great example of a player that wasn't playing at a high level until quite a late age, but now is, France's all-time greatest goal scorer, is playing in a World Cup semi-final tomorrow, could potentially be playing in a final again at the weekend, has won a multitude of trophies. So, players develop at different points and at different times. But I look at Sambi Lokonga and I see a 23-year-old player that I still don't know what it is that we do with him. I still can't work out in my own head what it is that we should do with him. Mikel Arteta, in answer to a question that I put to him at a press conference recently, talked about the fact that the plan for Lokonga has changed a little bit. That what they thought Lokonga was going to be might not be his best path. Like it might not be what he ends up being in this Arsenal squad, that he might end up being an 8 rather than a 6. They looked at him as a 6 and they brought him in as a 6, but Arteta said that they've probably come to realize over time that actually, actually he might be better suited to playing the 8 role. But again, today I watched him at 8 and did he impress me? Again, there were flashes of brilliance. There were moments where I looked at him and I went, yeah, that's what I want to see from you. And I'm thinking, right, go on now and do this for another 10 minutes. Do this for another 15 minutes. Really stamp your authority on this game. Really impose yourself on this game. And then he'd disappear into the shadows again. And then he'd come back into life again. And you'd look at him and you'd go, yes, 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 that's what I want. And then again, he would sort of go by the wayside. And I find him a little bit frustrating at the moment. I think technically he's got it. I think he's got great ball control. Obviously, a good passer of the ball. I think he's got a good footballing brain. But I don't know. Is he not applying himself 100%? I don't really know what it is, but there is something missing with Sambi Lokonga, and I'm starting to get a little bit worried and concerned about it. Not to the point where you got to bin him out, or to the point where I don't trust him in games or anything like that. But given the noise that was around him when we signed him, given the promise that he showed in the very, very early days of his Arsenal career, I just worry that he's stagnating a little bit, and I don't really know what we do to try and get him back on the path that we all know he can be on and probably should be on. So I'm a little bit worried about Sambi Lokonga, I have to say. Other players of note, Fabio Vieira, some tidy touches again, some good moments in the game. I said during the watch along that, I expect to see him play from that right-hand side a lot more than anywhere else. I said that when we signed him. I said to you guys that I think this is a guy that Arsenal will bring in, profile of an 8 probably, but probably has the ability to play from wide. And while he's adapting to Premier League football, while he's bulking up physically, which he definitely needs to do, there's a chance that we do utilize him as cover for one of the wide positions. He's also interesting as well, right? Because if you bear that in mind, then if you believe what I believe, and that's that Mikel Arteta actually thinks he's quite a good option from the right hand side, then you got to look at our forward options overall, and you think, okay, so Saka's the right winger, and the backup to him is Vieira, but then you've got Marquinhos in the picture too. And then you've got Reece Nelson, who you could argue can play from the right wing. I prefer him from the left, but you could argue can play there. And then you go over to the other side and you look at Martinelli and the role he's doing now, and you think that beyond him, you're looking Emil Smith-Rowe. You got to remember, Emil Smith-Rowe, by the way, was holding down that position prior to his injury. And had that injury not occurred, might have still been holding on to that position. I don't know. But then we're going to go out and sign Mykhailo Mudryk, or we're going to try and sign Mykhailo Mudryk. And there have been more noises today to suggest that that is a real possibility in this upcoming transfer window. Are we overstocking in certain positions and leaving ourselves short in others? That's my worry. That's not a worry. I don't, maybe a worry is too strong a term, but I think there's got to be elements to some of these things that we just don't know and are not privy to as fans. Obviously, there are things we don't know, but for me, Mudryk is a left winger, and if you've got Martinelli and you've got Emil Smith-Rowe coming back, and from time to time you've pushed Eddie Nketiah out there, and Reece Nelson is in the picture too, why is a left winger a priority? Isn't a right winger more of a priority? Or can Mudryk play anywhere across the front line? Or does Mikel Arteta see Fabio Vieira as a winger rather than anything else, or first and foremost? And that leads to a different mindset. There's lots to try and unpack here. It's really, really difficult to make sense of every little decision that Arsenal make. But we're going to try. But yeah, look, the performance was okay. It was of a decent level today. It was against a decent opponent. They then made changes. We made changes as well. And that always disrupts the pattern of these games, doesn't it? And then obviously the penalty shootout comes along, and you got to give a shout out to Karl Hein. Mentioned him right at the top, said he was good against Leon, and I stick by that. And I thought he was good today, but also very good in the shootout. He seems to have this incredible knack of reading where the striker wants to go, and you won't get there every time. You can guess the right way, and if the penalty's good enough, you won't save it. That's the life of a goalkeeper, right? But I think watching him in shootouts, he seems to have this incredible knack of reading people and understanding what their intentions are. And that is, a really big thing to have as a goalkeeper. Estonian international, got a bit of stick after a below par performance against Brighton in the Carabao Cup. But I think this tournament has done him good. He's been the number one. Ramsdale's missing. Matt Turner isn't ready to be involved in the match days just yet. Although I think, when we get to the game against Juventus before the season restarts, I think those two will probably be involved again. But Karl Hein has been given these opportunities in Dubai, and I think he's taken them. I think he's done really well. Other than that, not really an awful lot to report. As I say, with these games, it's difficult to take too many takeaways and it's difficult to read into them too deeply. But for me, actually, just one final thing. I do want to quickly touch on Eddie Nketiah, because he's someone that all eyes are on him at the moment, right? How is he going to do? How is he going to fare? Is he going to be able to fill the shoes and fill the void left by Gabriel Jesus now that he's injured? And, I've got concerns about that. I think that he can do a good enough job if the environment around him is right, if people are performing, if people are stepping up. But I've been saying over the last few days, and why I've been kind of urging people to just chill out a little bit, is that this injury is one that Arsenal have known about for a bit now, and still have time to address in the lead up to the return of the Premier League. Now, I don't mean in terms of going out and bringing someone else in, but what I mean is that Eddie Nketiah knows, there's no will I get a chance, won't I get a chance. There, you're going to get a chance. You've been earmarked as the understudy to Gabby Jesus. You know that you're going to be in the side. You know that you need to go out there and deliver for your team and your teammates and for your manager, for the fans. So you've got time to mentally get into the right frame of mind, but also you've got lots of time on the training ground with Mikel Arteta. You've got lots of time on the training ground with the staff, and there's lots of time for them to highlight to you what it is that Gabby Jesus does, and does so effectively, and how that impacts and helps the rest of the team. And if you've got that information and you can start tweaking your game, not because you want to completely change a game and rip it up and start again, but just to be mindful and aware of that stuff so that you can help your opponents. If you look at the link ups between Jesus and Odegaard, Jesus and Martinelli, if you can tune yourself into that same wavelength to a degree, then you stand a much better chance of replacing him seamlessly. And that's what we want to see. And I've seen things in the game against Lyon and in the game today against Milan that tell me that that is going on, that tell me that that is happening, that tell me that Arsenal and Eddie Nketiah are working on, not turning him into Gabriel Jesus. That's not going to happen. But just some of the things he does. So some of the positions he took up today in order to receive the ball and attract, like flies around shit. Like, you want to, when you get the ball in a forward position, one of the things that Gabby Jesus is so good at doing is almost like being that, that the shit, the jam, whatever, the thing that the flies all flock to and all crowd into and completely forget, as a result of that, everything else. And that is how you create space for others. That is one of the things that Gabby Jesus is so good at doing. And because of his dribbling style and because of how robust he is, he, as soon as he gets the ball, magnet is a great one. Yeah, better than flies around shit, isn't it? Thank you, Amberley. Temi says a point of fixation. Exactly. All good points. What you want is you want that striker, when they get the ball, you want them to cause alarm bells to ring in the opposition defense. That's one side of the game. The other side of the game is, yes, you want to get in behind, you want to pop up into certain areas undetected, but there are points as a striker in this Mikel Arteta system where you want to be detected. You want to be the one on everybody's radar. You want to be the one that the defenders clamor around and the defenders chase down and hunt down. And that is what I've seen Eddie Nketiah add to his game, just dropping into those pockets. But then once he gets the ball there, taking a couple of touches, holding on to it for that split second later, to the point where people then start to fear he's going to turn and everybody goes all in and everybody tries to close him down. If he can survive those moments in the way Gabby Jesus does and then work the ball to other people, your Odegaards, your Vieiras today, your Nelsons today, that then creates lots and lots of space. And that is something that Eddie Nketiah didn't do so well before. And I think that's one of the reasons we felt a massive difference when Jesus come in, because of that, more so than the goals. The guy hasn't scored goals for, Jesus I'm talking about, for 15 odd games. So it's not the goals that we're going to miss, it's everything else. And I think Eddie Nketiah, if he tweaks his game, and I think he's got goals in him as well, by the way, but I think that he could be, all right, not an ideal replacement, not a perfect replacement, but someone who can do a much better job than anybody's giving him credit for at the moment. And I, as I say, have seen just a few signs that he is working on certain elements of his game, certain aspects of his game under the guidance of Arteta and his staff that will make him a more like-for-like replacement to Jesus than maybe any of us thought he could be. And that has got to be a positive. But anyway, that was my final point. I am going to run on. I am going to run off. I'm not going to do a Q&A today just because do you want me to be brutally honest? My dinner's ready. It's been ready for about 15 minutes. It's probably gone cold. I don't like microwaving it. It's not the same. But no, jokes aside, like I am going to dash and well, no, it's not a joke. My dinner is ready, but you know what I mean. I'm making a joke of it. I am going to dash. We are going to be back tomorrow. We are going to bring you more Arsenal content tomorrow. We'll do a lengthy Q&A session to make up for that. Please do, if you haven't done so already, leave a like on the video. That really, really does help us. We're hoping to continue the growth of the channel. We've only got 50 likes on the board, but there's 330 of you watching. Guys, there's no reason why we shouldn't have at least 100 by the time I jump off this stream. So please do leave a like. It helps so much. And the other thing as well is that, keep saying it, I feel like we're getting closer though. We are now less than 100 subscribers away. We are 88 subscribers away from reaching that landmark of 25,000 subscribers, a quarter of a century here on this YouTube channel. So if you could please do so. If you haven't done it already, make sure you're subscribed. Make sure you leave a like on the video. Let me know your thoughts on the show in the comments section below. Let me know your thoughts on the performance in the comments section below. Enjoy the World Cup action this evening, and I'll catch you all soon. Until next time, take care. Dubai Super Cup winners. You'll never sing that.
I'm Martin Tyler, and you're listening to Harry Symeou.